Hey everyone, it's Callum from Cagefront here. Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome to the channel. Now in this video, we are back with another fighter spotlight tier list. The first one I made on the channel, if you haven't already checked it out already, I'll leave it in the description and at the end of the video. It was on Kai Asakura taking on the top 15 fighters in the UFC in the flyweight division. Now in this video, we have none other than the submission specialist, Reinier De Ridder, the former one championship double champion at both middleweight and light heavyweight. Now in this video, we are going to be looking at Reinier De Ridder going against the top 15 middleweight fighters in the UFC, starting from 15th at Michel Pereira, going all the way through to Dricus Du Plessis to see how he matches up. Now shout out to Dyson Daniels fan for the video suggestion. Thank you so much for all the support and for everyone watching as well. Now Reinier De Ridder, he came in a few months ago, fought GM3 Gerald Meerschaert, choked him out. Granted, he's got a bit of an awkward style on the feet, which is a little suspect, but he does have power in his hands. He dropped GM3 and he is a giant at 6'4" in middleweight. And most importantly, the guy is a submission machine. He is 12-0. He has a very strong submission game, which in most part, the middleweight division does lack. So that's where it will be fascinating matching up against a lot of these guys in the top 15. Now for the tier list, we have at A, we have the best matchups. The best matchup for Reinier De Ridder by far. He is a pretty good favorite in that fight. And at B, we have the slight favorite. So pretty much the same thing, but it's going to be a little bit tougher, but I still think that he would be the one to win that fight. C, middle of the road, very self-explanatory. We have evenly matched 50-50 across the board, pick 'em odds. Now D is a tough matchup where I'm definitely more so looking at the fighter that he is facing, getting the advantage over him, whether it be on the feet or possibly even on the ground. And then last and definitely least for him is the nightmare matchup. This is where I highly doubt that I see him winning it all. I see him honestly most likely getting finished in some way, shape or form. So without further ado, let's get into it. So here is the tier list. We have the best matchups. We have slight favorite, evenly matched, tough matchups, and right there in red where Reinier De Ridder wants absolutely no one, we have the nightmare matchups. Now we're going to be going through the top 15 in order. As you can see, they are all in order of their ranking positions, and of course we are going to be starting off with Michel Pereira, which is not going for a good start for Reinier De Ridder because Michel Pereira is a tough matchup for Reinier. He is just too explosive for him. He's got the power, he's got a ground game as well, which a lot of guys in the division don't exactly have in terms of an offensive threat, even compared to Michel Pereira, who is 15th. Michel Pereira is just offensively good everywhere because of his brute strength, his explosivity, just his finishing potential. He's very hungry for the finish. And Reinier De Ridder, the big issues with him to start off with going through this video to keep in mind, he isn't the most technical on the feet. He's not fast either. He's a slow fighter. He's slow, but he is technical. He's got power in his hands. Offensively, he's good, especially with the submissions. And when he's on the feet, he's got decent offensive threat. He's got power there, but in terms of stringing high piece combinations and his speed, it's not really there. So going against someone that is so explosive in Michel Pereira, he is going to get extremely flustered. The only way I can see Reinier De Ridder really taking Michel Pereira out is doing a fluffy Hernandez, grinding him out, taking him into deep waters and just exhausting him. Otherwise, it's just not happening, but he doesn't have that grinder type style that fluffy Hernandez does have. So he is a tough matchup. And joining him in the tough matchups, I gotta go with Shara Bullet. I'm gonna put him lower in the tough matchups just because Shara, yes, he is a striking freak. He is just so diverse, so dynamic with his striking arsenal. It's just so deep, but the ground game is severely unknown. We don't really know a whole lot about his takedown defense as well. I mean, the times that he's been, threatened to be taken down, he's actually grabbed the fence a couple times, so that doesn't actually help in our analysis. But his striking arsenal is just too deep, and granted, Russian honestly, he's going to have some form of takedown defense. So honestly, I just don't see Reinier De Ridder having a good time against Shara Bullet, because Shara Bullet's arsenal on the feet is just too good. And the biggest issue is his speed. Without a doubt, the speed there, the speed difference, and his striking accuracy on top of that in combination, Reinier De Ridder is going to have a tough time. I think he could probably honestly get chinned by Shara Bullet if they did fight, let's be honest here. So Shara Bullet, I'm going to have to put him in tough matchup, but I'm going to put him lower just because of that ground game offensive threat, because if Reinier De Ridder gets him to the ground, that's when Shara Bullet, from what we've seen so far, he would be in trouble. But I just don't believe Reinier has the ability to get him there with pure wrestling. Now, moving on to Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy Hernandez, he, for me, I think I'm going to have to put him in evenly matched. I think they are very even because they are very similar stylistically. Fluffy Hernandez is one of the best ground game artists in the division easily. Very, very good grinder-based style, and he does have the submission offensive threat there, and he's durable. He's got decent striking. It's definitely improved, but it's going to be harder for Fluffy to really, really engage that grinder style against someone like Reinier, who is very, very adept on the ground. With whether he's on his back, whether he's on top, he is just very good at finding those holes when it comes to submission defense, and that's where Fluffy could be caught in some danger there. And on the feet, Fluffy isn't the greatest, and Reinier De Ridder, I think, can evenly match him on the feet there. So I do think that that is a pretty strong 50-50 matchup. Now, moving on to another 50-50, I've got to put Jack Hermansson there, because I mean, realistically, if we're getting a Jack Hermansson who fought Joe Pyfer, I would probably put that in tough matchup, because he was just on in that fight, and especially with the boxing going through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, he looked incredible. Just pure veteran. It looked fantastic under pressure. But it's just hard to say because we haven't seen everything from Reinier De Ridder. It's a very close matchup. I think that when it comes to any ground game offensive threat, similar to Fluffy with the wrestling, RDR is going to be dangerous against them with that submission offensive threat. So I do think it's a close matchup. I can't see any of them really taking advantage of either in any real discipline. I can't see them ragdolling or making it severely tough for one another without doing the same thing to each other. You know, I think it's just very even across the board when it comes to that striking pedigree and that ground game for Jack Hermansson when it comes to the wrestling against the submission threat of RDR. So I think that's pretty evenly matched. Now, moving on to Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa is similar in the sense when we look at Michel Pereira. It is the brute strength and explosivity. I'm probably going to put him lower. I think he's just not as you know, he doesn't have that killer power, that killer just submission-based threat that Michel Pereira has. Like, Michel Pereira is like 1 out of 10 or just 10 out of 10 in terms of just being able to kill someone. Now, Paulo Costa, he doesn't really have that. Just the fact is, with him, is this just straight strength. That is what Paulo Costa has, and that's going to be very good in a matchup against Reinier De Ridder, because he's got the power, he's got the size, he's got the takedown defense as well. I think that he's just going to be able to really bully RDR on the feet and just not... I don't think RDR's got the strength to really get Paulo Costa down. If RDR had the ability to utilize very high-level judo, I think that that would be a different story for him against a lot of fighters in middleweight, but he doesn't have that. At least from what I've seen, he just doesn't have that on his side. So, yeah, Paulo Costa is a tough matchup. Now, Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze, he's someone that's obviously been switching between middleweight, light heavyweight. Very similar in kind of stature and size when it comes to Reinier De Ridder, comparatively. I think that Roman... I think that he's going to be a slight underdog. I think Reinier De Ridder is going to have him as a slight favorite. I think that RDR is just going to be able to find good opportunities against literally the slowest fighter in middleweight in the rankings, which is Roman Dolidze. I mean, Roman Dolidze, his striking isn't that overly impressive. I think RDR can match up with him very well there. And on the ground, granted, Roman is strong, but he is not fast. He's slow. And against someone like RDR, who, especially when it comes to those transitions, Roman's wrestling-based transitions on top, I think RDR could deal with them very, very well if he's on the bottom or just on the ground in general. And I honestly think the submission opportunities would definitely be there for RDR if he gets this matchup. So realistically, I'm going to say it now, it's a slight favorite, but realistically, it's going to be the best matchup for him. That is the best matchup that he could honestly have in this division. So I've got to put it there as a one of. Now, moving on to Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen, similar to Fluffy, I'm going to put him at the bottom though. He would probably have the lowest, actually, he'd probably have a better opportunity against Jack Hermansson as well. But yeah, Brendan Allen, lower of the evenly matched, could be looking into the tough matchups there. Very similar in style, very similar fighters overall, very, very similar levels as well. That is like the clearest mirror match that I can see. I mean, they're both very adept on the ground. Brendan Allen, amazing with his chokes. Same with RDR, very, very good. Both tall, you know, both have decent striking overall. It's just mirrored pretty much all over the place. That's all I got to say. It's very evenly matched, but obviously Brendan Allen has fought overall better competition. That's why I'd put him lower of evenly matched. So moving up into the 8th ranked position, we got Jared Cannonier. Jared's just I think Jared is just tough. Like, Jared is tough, honestly. Like, he's strong, he's technical, he's just well-rounded. Very hard to just finish. Not getting finished on the feet. He's got the brute strength. I don't see him getting submitted by RDR. Jared Cannonier has got very, very good like fundamental combinations on the feet as well, which I think can really, really fluster RDR. From what we've seen so far, I think that he can do a very good job there. I think Jared Cannonier, he's just very tricky to fight against, and I think RDR would face that, and I think he would lose against Jared Cannonier. Now, looking at Marvin Vettori. Marvin is tricky because, honestly, without the brute strength of Vettori, I would probably honestly go as a slight favorite for RDR. I'm probably going to put it at like the top of evenly matched. I think that there's a possibility that RDR could honestly be a slight favorite. I just see Marvin in this matchup specifically being like a worse Paulo Costa. I mean, he doesn't have like the very good reach, the range or anything. I mean, the problem as well, RDR has a very good jab, very long, like got good reach as well. And we've seen Marvin against Cannonier. I mean, we've seen him in a lot of fights. He relies too heavily on his durability. Honestly, I think I'm gonna have to put him as, I think it's a slight favorite. I just think Marvin, he just has bad issues against guys that can find range over him and have more technical prowess, and that is what RDR has, not to the full extent on the feet, but even when Marvin, if he is like getting pieced on the feet to an extent, if he goes to shoot, the last place he wants to be is on the ground with RDR. You don't want to be there. A lot of these guys do not want to be there on the ground with him. And Marvin Vettori, unless he can really just find good combinations, find those shots well, I just don't see him being a favorite against RDR. I think RDR can honestly win that fight. Now, moving on to 6th place, we are getting more difficult here for him. Caio Borralho, I've got to put him as definitely one of the tougher matchups, I'd say. I think he is probably easily one of in that tough matchup category. He is just too technical on the feet, very adept on the ground as well. He's just too technical on the feet when it comes to the style that he uses. He's a point style fighter with more speed, and that is what's going to break down RDR on the ground. Even RDR will be challenged to submit Caio Borralho. Caio Borralho, very well rounded, just very fast, very good fight IQ. He is very good, and yeah, I don't see many outs for RDR to really take out someone that is as technical as Caio Borralho. Now, Nassourdine Imavov, this is more of an interesting matchup because Nassourdine doesn't have like insane speed. He's more technical on the feet with his boxing. It would be a very interesting matchup just seeing like them physically because both of them are very tall, fight with kind of very weird just movements. So I think that Imavov with his straight boxing would outmatch RDR on the feet without a doubt. But when it comes to the ground game, I mean, we saw Brendan Allen control Imavov well in that first round. So Nassourdine is someone that is going to be tricky, but I think the boxing can get him through. I would probably put him... Honestly, he has been looking good. I've got to put him like lowest. I think I'll probably put him lowest because he's not the most physically present guy either. Like he's not super strong or anything like that. He just is like a well-rounded kind of fighter. But what's going to put him from the tough matchups that splits him from the evenly matched is just the level of his pure boxing against RDR. I think that is the thing that really pulls him through there. Now, moving on to Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker is a nightmare. He's going to be a nightmare for RDR. Very, very, very bad matchup because Whittaker is a guy that is super fast, karate-based style. He will absolutely just tear him apart with the speed, the power. I mean, on the feet, dynamically, he will just pick him apart completely. And he's got the takedown defense there. Yeah, Whittaker is just too high level and too bad a matchup for RDR. He would most likely get chinned in a fight with Robert Whittaker. Now, moving on to Khamzat Chimaev. Now, this is going to be a controversial pick because Khamzat Chimaev, he is an absolute freak on the ground. Chain wrestling, absolute god tier. But stylistically, it isn't so black and white because RDR, he has the very adept ground game, 12-0 with submissions. Khamzat Chimaev, a ground game freak, mauls them and submits them. Can Khamzat Chimaev beat someone? He fought RDR. It would be the best ground game specialist he has ever fought, without a doubt. Can Khamzat submit him? Well, I think that he can. I mean, Khamzat is not the strongest on the feet as well. He's good, but he's not the strongest. He's got very good power, and I think honestly, if it's going to be anything, I think Khamzat would probably chin RDR. Like, it's more of a conversation whether Khamzat is a tough matchup or he is a nightmare matchup. And I am going to put Khamzat at the very top of tough matchups, edging on the nightmare, because Khamzat, just stylistically on the ground, it would be very fascinating because you really got to think back, looking at Khamzat's opponents, looking at who he's fought. He's mauled everyone on the ground, right? But who has he fought that is very adept on the ground, especially offensively and defensively with submission-based game? Because yes, we look at Kamaru Usman. Usman isn't a submission specialist. He is a very, very strong wrestler. But can Khamzat beat a guy that is 12-0 with submissions, very, very good defensively when it comes to those submissions, and also turning it around and also getting a submission himself? That's where it's interesting for RDR. But on the feet, Khamzat is improving. He's got very good power in his hands, like not the best combinations or anything, but yeah, if they're exchanging on the feet, especially from I'm getting a bit of an ick when it comes to RDR and the way he stands on the feet. I think his chin is just very open there, and if Khamzat lands, you can definitely go to sleep. I mean, we look at, I'm shitting on GM3 in this video, but we look at what Khamzat Chimaev did to GM3. So yeah, I'm going to put Khamzat in the tough matchups. I think Khamzat chins him. I don't think he submits him. I think he chins him, but I'm not putting him as the ultimate nightmare because you got to also remember Khamzat with that cardio potential issue as well. If RDR can really get through that first, second round defending those submission-based attempts in the wrestling, you never know what can happen in those later rounds. So I'm going to put him at the top of tough matchups. Now, Israel Adesanya, I will say it right now, even without going into Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis, he is without a doubt the worst matchup for Reinier De Ridder. He is an absolute technical nightmare for him on the feet. One hit KO power as well. We obviously saw what happened to Alex Pereira. Izzy's got very good takedown defense. He's extremely technical. He is as tall as RDR, so that eliminates that, and has longer reach, eliminates the jab as well. And he's faster. He just, yeah, unless Reinier is somehow able to get him to the ground and take his back, it's done. Like, Izzy will chin him. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Izzy is an absolute long day for RDR. Now, moving to Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland, stylistically, a nightmare. Very, very difficult to just really just get past stylistically. Straight boxing style, very good defensively. His jab is one of the best jabs in MMA, so it's better than RDR's, and RDR, that's his best weapon on the feet. And that's just basically eliminated in comparison to Strickland's style, because he's just so much more adept on the feet. Strickland, honestly, I think he's just got good enough takedown defense. RDR doesn't have the best wrestling, so he needs to get it to the ground. Don't see him getting it to the ground. He's a better matchup than Izzy and Whittaker, without a doubt, because Strickland doesn't have that full power, you know, that one-hit KO power or anything like that, or that overall insane speed. But yeah, I just don't see many outs for Reinier De Ridder to actually capitalize on Sean Strickland. And lastly, moving on to Dricus Du Plessis, last and not exactly least, but he is definitely going in the nightmare matchups. He's going to be above Strickland. He is just... He's like Paulo Costa, right? Like, he's Paulo Costa, but he's got more offensive threat. He's just as strong, if not stronger, and he has a very underrated adept game on the ground. He is just good everywhere. I mean, on the feet, he reminds me of pretty much like Anatoly Malikin, who has KO'd Reinier De Ridder twice. And then on top of that, when it looks like Anatoly, Dricus Du Plessis has obviously fought better competition and is just a absolute explosive freak when it comes to either the ground or the feet. So he is just very obviously awkward to deal with in general, but he's too powerful. He could chin him on the feet, and when it comes to that explosivity, getting him to the ground, possibly out muscling him as well, and trying to stay safe, and probably most likely staying safe in those positions on the ground when it comes to those submission offensive threats, because Dricus is very, very underrated when it just comes to the ground in general. So do I think Dricus could submit RDR? If he hurt him badly, yes, possibly, but I think Dricus, when it comes to that out, it's got to be on the feet, and he's not as high as Whittaker and Izzy because they are the, you know, just the technical top echelon of the striking in middleweight. So I just don't really see Dricus being higher than them, but Dricus is definitely, without a doubt, a nightmare matchup. I hope you enjoyed today's Fighter Spotlight tier list video, and if you haven't already seen the Kai Asakura one, I'll leave it on the screen now. And please like, comment, subscribe. It really goes a long way for the channel, and I really appreciate all the support, and I will catch you in the next one.